Dost thou feel the despair? The gloom of the woods and of the world now gone. The woes of men and the weeping of elves, fading faintly down the forest pathways. Now is thine to tell of the golden dragon and the god of hell, and of the names most sorrowful, the Enoch, the Tear Maiden, and the proudest of the princes of men, Turin, son of Húrin, whose will lies miswoven from the skein of history, and his soul overthrown by fate.
Welcome to the Angmar Archives, a channel interested in the art and artifacts inspired by the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. We're delighted to welcome to the archives an amazing Tolkien artist, painter, prop and costume maker, an all-round extraordinary talented fellow and friend of the show, Mr. Harvey Harrison. I first encountered Harvey's work on social media a few years ago and have since acquired several of his pieces, some of which we will be discussing today. Over the last few years, I've had the pleasure to get to know him, to collaborate with him, and to meet him earlier this year. But before we begin this conversation, we would like to sincerely thank the incredibly generous folk from the black metal band One of Nine for sharing their extraordinary Dawn of the Iron Shadow album announcement trailer with which this episode began. As the bruising, mythic figure of Turin, son of Húrin, gazes upon the lands of Beleriand, we focus our eyes on one of the most iconic objects from the Legendarium, the dragon helm of Hador, wrought by Telkar, the smith of Novgorod, whose works were renowned. The helm was designed, of course, by the extraordinary artist Alan Lee, and brought here to life by none other than our guest today. And so, if I could borrow a phrase from the Black Captain himself, Harvey Harrison, this is your hour. Welcome to the show.
No, thanks for having me.
How are you keeping?
Not bad. It's good. Very busy. Like constantly. It's kind of crazy. As soon as I think, oh, it's going to be a quiet one, just up ramps, and there's just a million things to do and make and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to get stuck into the pieces. So I'll share screen now, and we'll have a look. Let me know when you can see.
I see darkness. Okay, there we go.
No, it's appearing.
Perfect. So I thought we'll make a start with, I suppose, the little 1/4 scale version of your Dorloman helm. It's just such a beautiful little piece. And it's been a while that you've talked about doing this one. How did you decide to, I suppose, do the big one and then this little 1/4 scale version?
Well, the original one I did was the big full scale thing, and I wanted to do it for a really long time, but it was one of those helmets where it's like I either make it for myself, which I don't do very often, or I have to wait until somebody wants one, and then I can kind of afford to make it or have the time to make it, kind of thing. Yeah. So when I was approached by the band, we were like, we would really love one for what we're doing in our project. It's like, oh, yes, I finally get to make it. The 3D model that was used originally was amazing, but there was lots of issues with it. When it's blown up to like a full size scale, the issues with it get blown up with it. So there's a lot of back and forth trying to, you know, originally the dragon was hollow in the original model, and that created all sorts of problems. All the little bits were just floating around. So they all had to sort of be put together in a way where it was all one piece, but you could still look through it. I think I shared pictures with you a couple of years ago about that, or a year ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite good enough. So it just sat to one side. I was like, right, I'm just going to focus on the helmet and then deal with the dragon later. And then once the dragon was printed again, I was like, I want to elongate so you can see the horns above the eyes are a little bit more longer than the original. On the quarter scale one, they're a little bit longer, and the teeth are a little bit longer. You know, there was just little things I had to do to the big one. But when the big one was finished, I was really, really happy with it. But then when it left, I was like, oh, it's a bit of a shame. I kind of wish I kept it. And then very quickly, with how big that helmet is, you have to realize with these things, like, not everybody has the room for these huge pieces. And as much as I adore making one-to-one stuff, quarter scale kind of leans in a little bit more sometimes with people. It's just more manageable to have something like on the mantelpiece. So that's when I was like,
there's also a kind of established line of other collectibles that I suppose people really enjoy having more and more of. So 1/4 scale does feel like a very manageable bookcase size. And I mean, what's remarkable is that you've managed to pretty much retain the same amount of detail at that 1/4 scale, without really any loss, including the chainmail at the back. It's just worked out really beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was hard. I definitely think, and I'm proud of this, that I definitely have a look to my props that is kind of coherent through all of them. Like, you know how like a painter has their own like style, and you're like, oh, that's definitely Francis Bacon or whatever. Not that I'm comparing myself to him. I'm just saying. I feel like my props have a little bit of like a grain to them, and I really love that. And I try not to make things too squeaky clean. So like the 1-to-1 scale helmet is kind of a bit more gritty and rough, and like a little bit more battered and bruised. Whereas the smaller one, I try to keep that in, but more with the paint application rather than the texture. Because at that tiny scale, when I start to add texture, it just becomes messy. I usually leave the texture stuff to like the larger things, because when things get small, it just bogs it down massively.
And the color on this one is so kind of rich, and the silvery and the gold. It really reminds me of that Sutton Hoo helm. I mean, the original design obviously is inspired by that, but it is. I think you've managed to really capture that feel of something ancient and really, I suppose, weathered, but not, as you say, squeaky clean, in a way that just makes it feel more real, despite it, not being clearly made of metal or something like that. But it's a really beautiful piece.
It was a massive accident. Like, as for most of the things I make, it's everything I make, when I'm about 3/4 of the way through, I'm like, wow, this is horrible. This is so bad. I hate it. And that happened with this. I couldn't stand it. What I did was I painted it gold and silver, and it was beautiful. Like in the outside, it would like blind you with how shiny it was. And I was like, I'm going to put a little bit of graphite powder on, just to kind of matte things down in the corners and kind of bring it together. And unfortunately, it just stuck to the gold. And I was like, oh no. And then as I tried to buff it up, the gold went to like a gray, and I was just freaking out. I was like, I've ruined this. I'm gonna have to start again. This is like 2 weeks down the drain. But then came back to it the next day and thought, oh, you know what? It does have a weird, like, oxidized kind of look to it. This is kind of cool. So I leant into it, and worked with it, and then this came out of the other end. And that seems to be a running theme with these things where they're just, I hate them. I really, really hate them. I'm like, this is awful, and I don't want to show anyone. And then it quickly turns out to be like one of my favorite things. Like the same with like other things that are my personal projects. It's just like, this is terrible. And then, yeah, works out in the end, I guess.
I think that's the struggle with kind of any artist. Of like, you look at your work and you're like, oh gosh, I could have done so much more, or maybe I could have stopped at this point. But where do you know kind of where to stop? Like, how far do you go into the process before you're like, I think I've done enough?
Mm.
Is there a process to that, or?
No, I I'm one of these people as well. I'm sure we'll get onto some of my paintings later on, but I really I like paintings that look like they're 3/4 of the way finished. It's
Got it.
kind of got like a rough edge to it, and it
Mhm.
kind of blends outwards, and your focus is in the middle. I really love stuff like that, and I feel like I've applied that to the prop making side of things as well. There definitely is a point where you need to stop. Uh, And usually, where I find that point, I go past it. And I'm like, okay, let's dial it back a little bit. Like, too much rust, too much highlights on the rust
Mhm.
can be a real issue, and it really starts to. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say my things are the most like realistic looking things because I don't think they are. But I think they're kind of done tastefully for camera, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I like to accentuate certain areas where they probably wouldn't be like that in real life, and then just completely leave areas where you'd think there would be bits and grainy bits and things. Because I feel like it creates more stuff going on and just interesting things to look at. So with your questions, when like is there a process when to sort of step back from something?
Gotcha.
Only until after it's too late, and then say, okay, I need to dial it back one more step, and then I think it's done, and then I just have to be reluctant and just take photos of it and just leave it.
Sure. I think it makes a lot of sense. You go really, really big and then you can dial it back as opposed to,
Yeah.
you do a little bit here and then you realize later you should have done a little bit more. So that makes total sense. And you're right, they image beautifully. They look really good under camera.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's weird. I like the photos that I take, but they're all like the Witch King on the screen now. That's a full size, full costume that I built. It originally started as a Nazgul, and I was like, no, I don't want to do the Witch King. And then I did the Witch King. That was taken in my bathroom.
Amazing.
So I literally just put a blanket on the wall, and on the floor, that's actually half of a table. Just put it on the floor, set it up in my bathroom, and right, literally on the edge of that image, on the right is the bathroom door, and on the left, I've actually really poorly photoshopped just to stretch the image.
I
Is
love
where the sink and everything was. So I just managed to just get him in frame with my phone and sitting there, flicked it. I was like, okay, I think that's fine. Some of the photos I take from my Instagram and things are very dodgy, like very just like squeeze it in, think about it later in the like editing room. But yeah, I do like the theme that I have going with when I take pictures of these things.
I think the one thing that's really remarkable, and just looking at this one and you speaking about paintings, is that there's a quality to your props that almost make them feel painterly. I mean, looking at this photograph, I suppose it is partly due to the grain and the, I suppose, quality and resolution and all that. But there's something that is kind of softer and weathered, and it almost feels like a painting.
Mhm.
And I think it's a really nice quality to those, particularly your metals are kind of remarkable in that warm and aged feel. I suppose looking at your paintings of recent and some from the past, of course, again, it's that kind of knowing when something to be highlighted and when other areas should just be left in a more general, unfinished, in inverted commas, look. so that it doesn't all feel so highly detailed and specific that it becomes kind of dry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It becomes too much, I've learned. Like, I'm currently building a full-size Sauron costume, and I've not done any work on it for so long because there's a lot going on. Oh, well, yeah, there it is. There's a lot going on, and the real Sauron costume has like purples in it and all sorts of different colors, and I'm like, to see this in person, when you have too much, I think it's just it's a little bit too crazy. On camera, it looks completely different. So yeah, it's taken me a long time to learn when not to do things, even though screen accuracy is like a big thing to people. It's like way up top. To me, it's not. And I know it's maybe a bit controversial, but I think some choices are better made if it's going to be sat on a shelf or a wall or a costume than they made to film it. I think there's some very clear choices you have to understand. But back to like the sort of weathering and stuff. Like I used to have a stormtrooper costume from Star Wars. I used to do like charity work in it at my local cinema and things like that. And I just when I first painted that, I just covered it in one color of brown paint. I was like, yeah, that looks amazing. And it's just one color. Just looks like I've been traipsing around in like not even just paint. But over time, with like moving around and the shoulder like rubbing against like something, or the thighs like rubbing against something else, it would reveal obviously natural wear, and things like that definitely. I used to take photos of it and think, right, I need to remember how that's scratched up and how there's nothing there, but there is here. And I'm like it all the time. Like I'll go outside, and if I see like a gate that's rusty in a very particular way, I'm like, oh, and I'll just take a photo of it and then just copy that, because sometimes just doing it in your room and just banking on just doing what you think looks right can work a lot of the time, but then sometimes it's just a little bit too much. It just goes too far.
Yeah.
Well, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you got into making these costumes in the first place? A kind of 1:1 scale. I'm thinking about the Witch King again. What kind of got you started into making these, and when was that? How many years ago?
Oh, well, I've always been, I'd say, like a theatre kid that didn't do any drama school whatsoever. I've always loved like costumes and props, and like, when I was really young, I was obsessed with Jim Carrey's The Mask, and I would draw that on a piece of paper and cut it out like every week and just wear it, or like whether it would be any 80s movie I was obsessed with, because like Gremlins I was obsessed with. So I've always had this like love for props and costumes. During college, like when we'd give an assignment, they would give us super strict assignment. Let's say like, right, you need to study X, Y, and Z, and you have to create artwork to do with that. I would stretch and bend that to my will, to where I just had an excuse just to make something from a film. Like I would always do that. And sometimes it would go well, and sometimes it was like, yeah, we're literally studying flowers and you've made like a gun from Star Wars. Like, I don't know what. So all the way through college, I've always like loved it. And then again with the Stormtrooper costume, that was like my first full costume that I bought as a kit and then built up. And that was when I was maybe 19. That was like the first time where it was like it felt like a proper thing and like super accurate. It wasn't, but super accurate, super cool. Like this is like a serious thing. And then obviously after working at the cinema and things, you go into quote unquote normal job, sitting behind a computer at a desk or whatever, and it really left me as a person. Like I didn't make anything in my spare time. I didn't really paint, didn't really draw for a few years. And then I got into another job where I wasn't in a good place in my life at all. And and with outside things happening in life, and then things happening at my job, it was just too much. There was too much things going on, and like I was really struggling mentally, as a lot of people do, and a lot of creative people do. Just I just couldn't do it. I really just couldn't do it. So I was at home, was signed off by the doctor, the usual thing, and then I'm at home and I'm like, I do not know what to do with my time. Like, I don't find enjoyment in playing games anymore. I don't enjoy playing guitar anymore. I don't enjoy any of the things that I love to do. I just want to sit and just zone out until I need to sleep. Like, it, as sad and dark as this has taken a turn, it was literally just like, just look forward to going to sleep, and that was it. Yeah. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm kind of in the mood to paint, because all I would do is watch Lord of the Rings. I'd watch Lord of the Rings. I'd watch YouTube videos on like Lord of the Rings lore and Tolkien lore. I was like, yeah, I can feel the love for Lord of the Rings kind of seeping back into me. Like, maybe I should just sit and paint. And this was 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. So I sat down, I literally ripped off a canvas off its wooden sort of surround, and just stained the canvas with tea. I don't know why. And then painted a hobbit hole. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I'll post it online. Posted it online, and like 2 or 3 people messaged me. Was like, oh, is this for sale? I was like, yeah, if you want it. Like, I don't know what to say. I was like, yeah, I suppose. And they're like, oh, how much do you want for it? I was like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never sold any of my artwork before. I don't know. And they're like, £50. I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, that's so weird. And obviously, you got to remember at the time, like, I'm signed off work, and sick pay is like horrendous. So I'm not making really any money whatsoever. And I'm like, oh wow, it's £50. I can spend that on like nothing. But I was like, oh great. So I was like, maybe I should paint another one. So I did another one, and the same thing happened. But this time I was like, yeah, they're £60. I was like, okay, great. And then it just snowballed so fast. And my whole life, whether it was my grandmother or like my parents or like friends or work colleagues, were always like, you know, you should be doing something with your art. You should be doing this. You should be working on a movie. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. And they're like, oh, you should do this. You should do that. And I've always been, yeah, maybe, with the backwards intention in the back of my head, like, no, it's never going to happen. What's the point? So, yeah, it just snowballed until one day, I can't remember who it was. I should really. Like, oh, could you make this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could. And I mean, a lot of my stuff now, I mean, the armor you're seeing on screen now, the only 3D printed thing on that is the shoulder armor and like the dagger at the front, and the rest of that is made from cardboard.
Nice.
So for a long time, at the beginning of this little journey, it was just cardboard and like cotton wool and glue and just bits I could find around the house, or like charity shops for like belts, like leather strapping and things like that. And yeah, it just snowballed. It feels really bad to kind of just whittle this whole story down of me being an artist now to like 5 years. But the whole, with me being comfortable enough to say I am an artist now, is insane. And I'm 32, and it's only happened in the last 5 years. And I've been doing this my whole life. But it's just weird. Like, even now, just talking on this kind of level with you guys and everything, and just the people I've met, and through doing this, it's just weird. Like, I'll never get used to it. It's so strange. I love it, but it's weird going from just making stuff out of cardboard in your bedroom to being able to pay your bills with it, and like being able to go to conventions and meeting people and tapping you on the shoulder and saying like, oh, I'll follow you on Instagram and all this stuff. It's one of the most incredible things I think I've ever done. And I do wish I started it a lot sooner. I do wish I went down this path way sooner. But it's just, just the way things happen.
That's amazing. Oh, good. Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's so moving to hear someone talk about their experiences, and especially when you're like trying to make life work like that,
Mm.
and you want to keep following your passions, but you have no idea how to start, and then you just fall into it and start doing it. That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that story.
No, no, thanks for listening. I know I can ramble about these things because I get mixed up with timelines, and I'm like, oh no, actually, this is a long time ago. Actually, no, this happened before this. But yeah, this whole thing was definitely born out of not being in a good place, and I'm definitely proud to say that now.
Yeah.
Whereas before, usually just didn't like to talk about it, didn't like to acknowledge it a little bit. Like when people say like, "Oh, how did you get into this?" I'm like, "Oh, I just did it." But it's yeah, it's I'm proud that it was born out of like this horrible thing. Like it obviously it won't go into too much detail because it's boring and it's really sad. But it bottom of the barrel like low. Like it was really really hard. Um,
Well, it's
but
a
yeah,
very interesting thing. I'm sort of reminded of, I think it was J.K. Rowling had written about this, the feeling of when you hit a bottom, and that gives you solid ground to then start building anew and start thinking
that's,
about what's worth building and what you actually want to do. And it is
I
amazing
think
that it's only taken you 5 years, in this journey. And the props that we're looking at the moment are, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are for a short film that you were asked
mm,
to create these for. And these are your own designs. They're not they're original pieces.
yeah, it was it. This was for they've changed their names a couple of times, but there's a YouTube channel called The Broken Sword, and they had, or they're still doing, still working on it. It's a short film called The Guard, and they approached me ages ago. Like this was right at the beginning of like me kind of figuring out, right, excuse me, I need to make money doing this because again, let's rewind a bit.
Mhm.
When I was off ill from that job, I actually lost my job. They let me go because I was off for too long, which is fair. Um, but it was like a sense of relief, but also like, oh no, like I need to, because I'm not in the right mental state. I need to interview for a job. I need to find a job that I know I'm not going to like because now I've had a taste of like making money from my art.
Yeah.
What do I do? And luckily, I'm still living with my parents at that time. And my mum was very supportive. She was just like, yeah, just keep going, I guess. And then the Broken Sword messaged me and was like, oh yeah, we would really love to make a costume, like a full costume for this film. I'm like, 100%, totally down. And then at the time, I hardly charged anything for it, which is fine. But I was like, okay, let's do it. And I sat down and I was like, don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. So they sent me some like concept art, and the concept art was beautiful. It was really good, but it was just it was just really really basic. And I said to them like, "Would you let me do my own thing? I'll keep the colors, I'll keep the silhouette, but will you let me do my thing?" And they were like, "Yeah, okay." So I just went to town. I literally didn't sketch anything, didn't sort of go through my brain of like what I wanted it to look like. Just sat on Google, went to a couple museums, and was just like, this looks cool, that looks cool. I know roughly what I want to go for. Let's go, just go for it. And that chest armor um, thing had like, yeah, there you go. It has like sort of like quilting on the front. So
Mhm.
that is just foam board you can buy from the range for like £5. Put into shape, bent round sort of the sternum ribs sort of area, and then just loads of triangles of cardboard stuck on, and then green pleather stuck down, trying to get in all the grooves and everything, and sticking on all the rivets you can see are actually just pearls that you can buy from the shop for like £1. Um,
Mhm.
there's belts from a charity shop that are on there. And this is when I just started 3D printing. So the shoulder that you can see on there, the gold shoulder with the sort of scale mail, I didn't know what I was doing. So usually that would probably take what 4 hours to print now for me. It took about 18. So that was printing and then covering that in glue and sand to get like a texture on it and painting it a certain way. But at this time, I definitely was like king of, oh, are you throwing that away? I will cut that up and use it kind of thing. So that costume is literally made out of just scraps. And as cool as it looks on here, they have filmed the scenes with it. They don't need to film anymore, which is good because it fell apart right at the end of filming. Just disintegrated into like pieces everywhere. But I'm always very proud. I'll always be very proud of that costume because that's the first costume outside of something for myself that was made for somebody else's art. And that is just so cool. Like, again, with the 1 of 9 thing at the beginning, making stuff for other people's art is so cool. And I am a bugger for using the word so cool all the time, but it genuinely is amazing. Like, it's cool having things on like a shelf and on a wall. Like I love that. But for someone to be like, I want this because I want to make like a music video, or I want to make a short film, or I want to do this, I want to do that, is so amazing. I love being a part of things like that.
That's awesome.
Sounds
Seeing
brilliant.
it in action, I imagine, is a huge difference from just sticking it up somewhere and appreciating it. It's gorgeous that way, but I think seeing, working with film folks and trying to make videos and seeing your work in action, that must be icing on the cake for you. That's really cool.
It is really cool. Unfortunately, I've seen nothing of the Guard short film. I've seen absolutely nothing. They mentioned they wanted me to make the armor for the orc character, but no, I've not really heard back from them. I know they're happy with my work. It's not like this, but I know they're happy with the work. It's just it's a very self-funded project, and they're not doing things by halves. They're really getting proper cameras and actors and beautiful sets that they've gone to film at. Like there's an old Saxon like village that is like still people can walk around it that they've filmed at, and it's wonderful. I've not seen any footage of my stuff in it whatsoever yet, so I'm very looking forward to that. Hopefully, it will surface one day, but who knows?
Hopefully they finish it, and I suppose maybe it is one of those that they're just taking their time in creating it, and it just hasn't gone to that stage yet. But speaking of working on, I suppose, other artist inspired pieces, maybe, or film inspired pieces. We're just looking at the one here from The Rings of Power, which I thought was also a really remarkable piece of prop that, think what you will of the show as a whole, but I think some of their designs are really, really beautiful and really memorable. So
Oh,
do
definitely.
you want to maybe have a chat a little bit about how you got to make this one and who ended up ordering one from you?
Oh yeah, this is kind of like the next after the working for the guard to make their costume and stuff. This was the next thing in my sort of career, if you want to call it that, where I was really I. It sounds sad to say, but I felt really validated. Yeah, so I made this Broken Blade right. I think I made this right before season 1 came out. Like season 1 wasn't out yet. And all the rust you see on this is actually cinnamon. Yeah, it's just
Amazing.
cinnamon because it's the only thing. It's the only thing I could really afford. Like I can't afford like these crazy paints that dry beautifully matte and things like that. So I was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And there is a gentleman on Instagram called Ashen Warrior Props. He's a lovely dude, and he did like a really quick glimpse of putting cinnamon on his props for rust, and I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. So I literally ran downstairs and just raided my mum's like spice cupboard. It just took. I think we had like 2 pots and took both of them. But I was experimenting with it. It's really cool getting ideas from different artists, but I didn't want to just jack like that from him. I didn't want to just be like, yeah, this is cool. So I put cinnamon powder on it, but then went in with a matte sealer spray. And if you continuously do that on certain bits of rust, like I've got another item here, it kind of coagulates together and goes darker in places and lighter in places, and it just gives different variation. But I was really, really happy with that. Put it up on Instagram and thought nothing of it. Like people liked it. I was like, yeah, I'm really proud of that. It was great. And then probably 2 weeks after that, I get a message from J.A. Bayona,
Wow.
I think that's how you pronounce his name, who directed the first 2 episodes of The Rings of Power, directed, is it A Monster Calls?
A Monster Calls,
Jurassic,
yeah.
Jurassic World, is it, I can't remember which one it is now. I'm going to sound terrible. The second in the Jurassic World series, he directed that. And I was a bit, something like that. But he messaged me through Instagram and I was like, this is weird. This can't be real. This is strange. And he was like, I love what you've done with this broken blade, and I love the Galadriel blade that I also made as well. He was like, I would like to buy both of them from you. And I was like, dude, you literally worked on the first 2 episodes. Like you could just I don't know why you want me to make them. This is typical me where I'm just like, somebody wants to give me money. I'm just like, nah, just go there, it's cheaper. But yeah, I mean this he saw this as well. I was like, I really want your version of it. And I was like, oh, okay. And usually I'm just like, yeah, okay. But making it for him, I was a bit like, oh no.
Pressure.
Like, this is massive pressure. Huge. So I'm so critical of my own work. And I was like, oh, like I do want to do it, but I don't. Anyway, I made them both, and it was just not a straightforward process. Like I had to ring up an agency in LA, in Los Angeles, and speak to this lady. And I was like, hello, I've just been given this number. Like, apparently I need to ask for an address. And she was like, who are you calling for? And I had to explain what. She's like, okay, I'll just patch you through. And I had to speak to like 3 different people in this like studio office space. And it was so hard. She was like, why do you want the address? And I was like, oh, Mr. Bayona ordered something from me. Like, I have his like PayPal information and everything. Like, what? I don't know what to do because he didn't give me an address. So I was like, I've got these things made for him and I don't know where to go. And they're like, okay, let me speak to him. And eventually they called me back and was like, oh yeah, you have to send them to his brother. So I was like, apparently his brother's a DJ, a pretty well-known DJ. So I was like, cool, okay. So I sent them to his twin brother, and then they eventually got to him. And the last I heard, he was very, very happy with them. But yeah, that was another point where I was like, okay, this is really working out. If people like this are asking for stuff from me, this is really working out. But then, yeah, it doesn't always take people, at the top, if you want to call it that. I've learned over like the last couple of years, like it's just the normal people that the everyday people that are just like, oh yeah, I've been to work for like 3 hours, not 3 hours. I've been to work for like 9 hours today, and I want to spend a bit of my wage packet on what you make. That is like unbelievable. People want to do that. It still baffles me today. Like it's crazy.
And weapons is one of the things that you seem to be particularly fascinated by. I'm just sharing a few of the images here of the that's Narso, of course. But all of these, none of these are metal, and yet they are remarkably metal-like.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that you've developed and improved over time, but do you want to maybe talk a little bit about your process of how you get to this kind of quality of prop that when you frame it like this, it just feels remarkably real?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there are some props, like Narsil, for example, there's no grit to that. It's a very smooth sword that's broken. That's it. There's no grain you can kind of put into it and get away with it. Because again, a lot of my like things, I put grain into it also to hide the fact that some textures are a certain way or what have you. But
Yeah.
when I first started making swords, they would be out of literally cardboard, with a steel rod through the center of them, and then covered in frac filler to really smooth it out and then sand it down. And that's fine if it's going to sit on a wall. As soon as you pick that thing up and sort of shake it a little bit, it's going to crack. And yeah, it was horrible. But I started out with aluminium tape, that you can wrap around pipe and things like that. I used that for a really long time, just laid it flat on there and got the back of a spoon and rubbed the spoon on it to make it flat and kind of burnish it. And when you do that, it kind of creates like a natural, like some bits have slight dents and slight bits of more shiny or dull. And it looked really good for about a month. And then if someone bought something from Texas, the Texas heat will start kicking off and it will flake off. And yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare for a while, trying to keep these things. It's all well and good making it look good for a time, but it's about longevity. When people buy these things, when you're as lucky as I am, you have to respect that these things should and hopefully be around a lot longer than I am. So I learned that very quickly. Like, I can't rely on silver tape to do my heavy lifting. Like, you're going to have to put a little bit more effort in. So that's when I transferred to the paint side of things, which, that takes a lot more thinking about, because different paints react with different things you're putting on top of them. Different paints react with different paints. It is very hard. Even now, I'll be making stuff like, for example, I know there's stuff on the screen, but this crossbow, this Urukai crossbow, reacted horrendously with so many different paints, and I had to repaint it like 4 or 5 times. So I'm still like learning things. But to get the really lovely shiny metal, like the gross metal like you've seen on the screen now, that's, for me, that's easy. That's like my bread and butter. That's what I'm proud of, and that's what I'm really, really good at, I feel. But when it comes to squeaky clean stuff, I can struggle a little bit. But with Narsil, that was a case of obviously sanding like it was going out of fashion all the time. And then just one chrome layer, because we're going back to sort of like less is more. I've seen people online make beautiful things like on a miniature scale, where it's like, do this wash and then that wash and then highlight with this and low light with that. Works beautifully on miniatures, but when it's full size, less is definitely more. So with Narsil, it was just a gloss black and then a spritz of chrome, and already that looked really good. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I get a message from a friend of mine, Sean. I won't say his full name because he's a bit private. But he works on House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, the new Robert Eggers film, Werewolf. He's working on that at the moment. Like, he actually went to college with my partner, and so we kind of got together talking on that basis. And he was like, "Oh, this looks really good, but have you tried this?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Mix this paint and mix this paint while it's wet, and then do this, and then sprinkle this." And I'm like, "Okay, that is too much for me. Just tell me the basic, and I'll work with it." And he was like, "Mix these 2 colors, and then just do what you want." So we tried that, and it looked insanely realistic right off the bat. But then to get that gleam that Narsil has, I actually used graphite powder, and a lot of people use that kind of thing, but sprinkled loads of graphite powder on it and just buffed it for a good 10-15 minutes, just all over the thing. And all of a sudden, like, it just comes to life. And I definitely think that Narsil was probably one of the more realistic, smooth weapons that I've ever made. And I was really proud of that. That was, someone bought that for their partner for a Christmas present. And I actually dropped it off to the house because they didn't live very far away. And they weren't in. And they were like, "Yeah, just leave it at the front door." And I was like, "Okay." And it was just in a box, and I just driving away from it. I was like, "No."
My baby.
But Yeah, I was like, please, because that what is displayed in that picture is a mirror from B&M or what, like just a really really cheap shop. Basically, it was just a mirror, smashed out the mirror, put some black velvet in it, and then just took some cool pictures. And I wanted that on my wall so bad, but I knew if I was to make it again, I don't think it would be as good as that version. So I just never made it again. I was just like, I'm not doing it. I can't bring myself.
Wow.
I'm just
But
going
with yeah,
through.
with oh sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm just going through some of your weathered pieces, and I love that story of the Narsil piece. But certainly your, I would say, signature style is the comes to life in those weathered pieces. And I don't know what your recipe is, and it is I suppose don't be revealing any trade secrets here, but it is you certainly managed to make these things feel like these Sam and Frodo helms are just so kind of beautifully capture that matte gritted feel, and the way you get the
Mm.
light is works really really well. And we'll get on to the some of the other um, uh, pieces in a bit more detail, but I suppose some of the things that you've talked about earlier, where you think about, let's say, where rain would fall and where water would gather and where dirt would accumulate. I think having that and calibrating that seems to be one of the things that you've got a really good eye for. And I wouldn't say it's a recipe because each piece is clearly different. But
Right.
Mm.
looking at all of them, they just seem to have that consistent, um, you know, hand and wash to it that just makes them feel real.
Yeah, I everything I do is kind of like I'm doing it for the first time a little bit. I try and remember what I did, but I really struggle. Like those Sam and Frodo helmets, for example, I loved the way they came out the first ones, and when I did the second set, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I can't remember. Like, and it's a horrible feeling because look, I get the fear every single month of this is my last month of doing this. This is it. Like, I get that all the time. And especially when it comes to remaking props, I'm like, I think I did it the first time. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it again. So it has taken a lot of practice and a lot of time to really, to be honest, I'm talking like I know what I'm doing most of the time. I'll be honest, I don't. I just kind of go for it. And I'm just like, you know what? This is what I thought I did last time. Let's work with it. And that's why every piece I do of like the same item. So like, let's say I make 2 helmets. The second one is always almost completely different. And the third one is slightly different. And the fourth one is slightly different. And I really value that. I don't really cast things. Everything's made on the fly. If someone says, "Oh, I want this skull lieutenant helmet," I'm like, okay, and then it will be slightly different to the last one. And I prefer that because I feel like someone's getting a very special item every single time. But yeah, with the process and things like where things kind of sit and sediment and get gross and minging, and I have a hat. If you saw my workspace, you'd be disgusted. It is my workspace. I want it to kind of look like this. Like when I'm not working in it, I want it to look like a little museum almost. But it's just trashed all the time. Just basically, say we've got a helmet, so we've got Sauron. I will cover it in the base colors of what I think it would look like neat. So let's go for the skull helmet that's on screen. It'll be a bit easier. The actual metal of the helmet will be chrome, and the skull would be a bone color. They're the bottom layers that I'll always work with no matter what. And then it's just wash and wash, like of different colors, like really thick stuff as well. I wouldn't even call it a wash. It's more of like a mud, just draped over it. to the point where I've had people come into the room and be like, "Oh, what are you working on?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's this," and they're like, "Oh," and you can see the disappointment in their eyes, like, "Oh, I don't know what you're doing, but cool, keep at it." I'm like, "Yeah, man," and then they walk out. But I think I work well with adding loads and then taking away, and then add. I mean, that's what you do anyway.
Yeah.
Because then, if the helmet's been sat out in the muck and the rain for loads of times, if you kind of simulate that as best as you can, you'll have things sit in a certain area. But you have to be patient with it. Like if you do a heavy wash and it all sits in the crevices and looks really great, I have a habit of getting my blowtorch or heat gun out to kind of speed the process up and to also give it more texture, and it will just blast it out of those corners. So you have to do it again, and then that's when you'll get like a really unique area with like a lot of paint in there and a lot of rust. When in actual fact, I've probably messed it up and I'm trying to cover it up. That also happens a lot. So if there's a helmet that I did the first time that looks a certain way, and then there's a second helmet and it looks a little bit different, it's probably because I did something wrong and I'm like trying to cover it up with weathering. And it works out really, really well sometimes. Like that, the piece you're seeing on the screen now, that's a troll helmet, and it's full sized. It's massive. It is huge. And obviously, with something that big, I look like a madman walking down the road with that in my hand. But that is all cinnamon. All the rust on that is just cinnamon, with the spray to kind of mat it down and make bits darker and make bits lighter. And then you go in with a sponge afterwards and really scrape away the edges so it gets rid of it, where you think, obviously the tips of things don't really have much rust on because all the water kind of drains away into the crevices and stuff. But there's definitely times where I get things wrong and go a little bit overboard. And I do rust in so many different ways. Like I'll paint rust most of the time. I used to do cinnamon on there. And then recently I've been experimenting with real rust, which is a whole different issue within itself, because that you don't have control on that. You kind of just put it on and just let it do its thing. And it's unruly sometimes. And you'll see it in the corner, you're like, oh, that looks really good. I'm really happy with that. And you'll come in the next day and it's a different color. And you're like, oh, okay, that kind of looks like it's had a fake tan put on it. We should probably repaint that. But yeah, I think I've forgotten the question because I just started rambling. But
it's all good. It's all good. Just enjoying some of these woodland shots and I suppose prop after prop. Some non-Middle Earth pieces here, but this was another one where it's a completely different finish to what we've been seeing before. This is a kind of gold, shiny, matte, but not glossy, but it has that almost crackling feel.
Yeah,
and it's such a beautiful piece and such a beautiful finish. This is for those who remember Excalibur, the Mordred's mask, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
And once again, another interesting story of who ended up having, or certainly seeing one here that you may want to talk a little bit about.
That was another. There's a gentleman who buys from me quite often, and he will come at me with like some crazy things that I've never even heard of. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, I'll make that. And then one day he was like, do you like Excalibur? And I was like, oh, I love Excalibur. And he was like, I really want Mordred's helmet. And I was like, done, cool. Let's not talk about price. Like it'll be cheap, don't worry. But like, I'm just gonna start it now. And he's like, yeah, cool, go for it. So yeah, the finish on that. I obviously wanted it. The real one is very like a hammered metal finish because it was done by I'm really bad with names, but Terry English, who he made armor for the Aliens movies, for Excalibur, for some stuff in Harry Potter. He did like loads and loads and loads of stuff. But he's super prolific, and I stick loads of pictures in my workroom sometimes on the wall of like different inspirational things, and his stuff is just always on there. So when I was asked to make this helmet, I was like, oh yes, can't wait to make this. Even though there is a film, Excalibur, and you think there'll be loads of reference, there's not. There's a few of the helmets, and they look really different. There's a few where the mouth area is really wide, which is the one that I went for. There's a few where it's really small. There's a few where it's a different color. The hair's slightly different. Like there's loads of different ones. So I thought to myself, I'm just going to go for the one that I think looks the best. I'm not going to go for like the hero prop or the stunt prop. I'm just going to go for what I think looks the best one. Excuse me again. But yeah, it had a very hammered, like a hand hammered metal finish, like waviness to it. And I was like, ooh, this is, because at the time I made this, I was exclusively doing like orc swords and orc axes and helmets where it's just really chewed up, gross stuff. And this is a little bit more pristine. It's not super pristine, but it's a little bit more regal looking. So it's a daunting thing, but I just used wood glue. Just layers of wood glue, like exterior wood glue. And when you stipple it on, the more you stipple it and work with it, it starts to dry out and it pulls away from the object you're like sticking it on. So it creates this like bubbly effect, but being obviously it flattens down over time and sort of relaxes. And I did that and took it outside and primed it. And when you primer things, it's all like a lovely flat gray. Everything's the exact same color, and all you see is the values of like the shadows on things. And just gray, I already knew this is going to be really cool. This is probably going to want to be my favorite things that I make. And I almost didn't want to paint it gold because again, there's not a lot of weathering in this. But anyway, I sprayed it gold and it looked amazing. And then the more I looked, I don't know if you can see it in the images, but as we're looking at it, on the left eye, there's kind of like a teardrop almost of like rust.
Yeah.
And then I watched Adam Savage do a video on the real one, and he picked it up and he was talking about it. And I saw the teardrop and I was like, that is super cool. I need to put that in. So weathered in the teardrop, and then that means I've got to weather the hair. And so you can't really see too much weathering on it. I mean, they're very dark photos anyway. But yeah, there's not too much going on with it, but I was very proud of it, and it took a lot of work. Even though there's a little bit less, it took a very long time to do. Anyway, the guy who purchased it from me was like, look, we've got a few things you need to send to me in like a big box, but my friend is doing a show, and at his show, Terry English is going, who made the original one. Would you mind sending it to this show? Because it was in Manchester, which is like 2 hours away from me up north. It was like, would you mind sending it or going down and getting it signed? I was like, yeah, 100%. Like, of course I'm going to do that. And the guys whose show it was invited me down. He was like, Harvey, I really want you to come down. It'd be really cool. Terry said he would love to meet you and stuff. Like, come down. So I'm like, this is going to be the best day ever. Something came up and I couldn't go, and I was gutted. So sent the helmet off, and I didn't hear anything for a couple of days. And then I get a message on Facebook and a video of Terry English signing the helmet, and not to me, although there was a little bit of confusion. He said he wrote like "nice helmet," and I was like, okay, well. And he wrote on it and was like, all I saw was the video of him signing it, but holding the helmet and kind of going over it and looking at it and being like, that's really good. I was just like, this is another moment that I should be proud of, because again, I struggle when certain moments arise. I give myself credit, obviously, but not all the time. So that time was definitely a time where I was like, no, you should be proud of that. And I was showing my dad, and my dad was like, I have no idea who this guy is, but cool. There was a lot of that. I was like, look it on my phone, and people were like, yeah, just an old guy signing a helmet. Like, that's cool. But yeah, having that moment, even though it wasn't signed for me, but it's just that was just a really special moment. I love that. And that photo of him with I assume is the original. I don't know if it's an original or another replica by him. It's just a moment where I was like, yeah, it's cool.
This is great.
It's very cool.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I just love that photograph of your replica next to the whether it's the original or one of the many that they've made, no doubt, is it's kind of remarkable.
It's definitely a pinch me moment.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I almost didn't believe it. It was kind of like, usually things hit me a day after, like big events like that. And I was sat at home and I looked at the photo on my phone. I was like, this is really going well. Like, I didn't think it would get to a point where, you know, a lot of my stuff is all around the world now. Like, a guy in Dubai bought something, Australia, Sweden, Japan, all over America. It's just weird. So whenever I see photos of people with something I've made, whether they're famous or not, is irrelevant. When I see someone like holding something up, or it's in the background, or it's just cool, because I don't plan on having children, but sometimes I get that fear of like, well, what am I going to leave? Like, when I'm gone, because I'm the last Harrison in my family, so sometimes I get the guilt, and I'm like, oh god. But then I think, like, I'm super proud that like my work is around the world now, and I kind of can die a little bit happy now, because when I die and I'm gone, I hope and like to think there are still some couple places in the world where my stuff is just sat on a mantle somewhere, or like someone's, how's that photo of someone holding it and be like, oh yeah, that was cool. He had that made. When that stuff will never ever get old. Like, that is like the coolest stuff in the world that happens. I am very, very proud of that. And that was another moment with Terry where it's just like, yeah, that's a very fulfilling full circle kind of thing for me.
Definitely.
And moving from, I suppose, speaking of death, how did you manage to convince assume a Church of England priest to allow you to photograph the helm or the mask of the devil in a church? That seems another achievement to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm like have any kind of charm, so I have to kind of switch on the not worries me, but I have to switch on the kind of like, I'm just doing this as a small project, please let me in kind of like thing. So that church is near my parents' house, and it's in a place called Repton, which was the capital of Mercia, which was like a Viking kind of, you're into your history, like Viking area and whatever. But underneath that church, there is an insanely well preserved Saxon burial chamber. Wow. And I've lived there pretty much my whole life. And it was only a few years ago, my dad was like, oh, did you know there's a Saxon burial chamber underneath this church? I'm like, no. No. You showed me this burial chamber, and I was like, whoa, this is insane. So I was like, right, every time I do something creepy, I'm going to take some photos down there. Totally naive to it. And the first time I went to that church, I had it in a backpack. And it looked like I just severed someone's head. And I'm walking in with this like backpack underneath my arm. And there was a lady in there, and I said to her, I was like, look, I'm doing a project, like, can I take some photos in the crypt? And she was like, yeah, what is it? And I was like, I know it looks a bit rough, but it's a helmet from Dracula. So it's not the devil, it's meant to be a dragon. And she was like, oh, okay. And she was like, I need to talk to someone about it. So I was like, okay. She goes off, and then I get an email saying, yeah, it's fine, as long as you're not using it on like a website to sell, which I don't. They're like, as long as it's not being used in like marketing stuff, like if it's just the photos of the object, yeah, do what you want. So like, but I was a little bit naughty. They were like, oh yeah, if you keep to the crypt, and if anybody comes down, just tell them what you're doing, and then let them enjoy the crypt and just take them down. They were very much like, take them down in the crypt. I was like, okay. And then took all the photos down in the crypt. A few people came down and was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this, and just turned back out and just went the other way. Because I'm literally in my I had like a really long raincoat on with the collar popped up because it was raining. I'm just there with my phone, like trying to take videos of it, and then just like this freak just doing this weird stuff in the church. I'm leaving. And then on the way out, I was like, oh, it would be a good shot because that church is beautiful. It's just a lot of stone rather than like, there's not much really ornate stuff in there. It's a lot more subdued. So I was like, yeah, I'll go in and take some snaps of like the actual church. So that is on a what do you call it? Like a vase stand that you put flowers on. So I quickly ran in, slammed that down, slammed the helmet on top of it, and just like took as many photos as I could, and then just grabbed the helmet, put it in my bag, and just left. And I didn't hear anything from them, so I'm assuming it was fine.
No one complained.
Yeah, well, yeah, that I know of.
That's amazing. I love this helmet. I love that 1990s Dracula movie so much. This is incredible.
Thank you. I love that movie too. That's one of my favorite films like ever. And I'm actually currently building, the cross that he stabs his sword into.
Yes.
I'm currently building a statue about that big of that. So that's going to be really cool.
Brilliant. Well, speaking of helmets, we now go into a series of, I suppose, triptych images, maybe, which I know you enjoy your 3-line grid, so to speak.
Yeah.
And these are just to my mind, some of your best pieces. I think your Mouth of Sauron is particularly very, very strong. And there's an Easterling as well. And again, that painterly quality of the gold and the rust and the weathering. There's just something very, very real, very grounded in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, this is the thing. This is going to sound awful. In photos, they look not different to how they do in person, but I try and make my props the way I think would look best in person and on camera. If I was to make them as realistic as possible, it would look quite dull. Yeah. Like if you go to a museum and see these things, they're beautiful, but some patina is almost too hard to see, and some dents are just really subtle, and it's kind of like not wasted, but these things that were designed by Weta have a lot of care put into them, or built by Weta, I should say. Like has so much care put into them, and every dent is intentional. Everything is intentional. There's no happy accidents in that. So when I take these photos of these items, I think they look so good is because I'm specifically building for an eye. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it kind of does to me. Like I'm not trying to make imitations, if that makes sense. I'm trying to make, this is going to sound so cheesy, but I'm trying to make like an experience almost.
Yeah.
Like I want them to almost look caricature-like is what I should be saying. Like I need things to pop more. I need things to be subdued more than they actually would be because obviously with the Lord of the Rings films, you've got color correction, you've got filters, you've got maybe a hint of CGI here, you've got this, that, and the other. All that laid on top of it, when you look at the prop behind that, sometimes they look bored. You look on the prop store website and you see some stuff and you think, oh, wow, that looks, not just because of age, but you're like, wow, that looks a little less impressive than I remember on screen. And I want to I don't want to make the prop. I want to make the item. I really like the idea of you've reached into the screen and like pulled out the helmet and it's like here. So I guess the best way of saying it is I try and paint the film filters with the actual object and stuff. So sometimes it can come across a little bit caricature-y, maybe. I don't know how to explain it, but
you're trying to actually like take that model, that prop, whatever it might be, take it from the screen, and you're just like, this is what we all remember, right? This is all
Yeah.
like maybe not everybody exactly, but I agree. I mean, if you look at some of the behind the scenes videos for Lord of the Rings, for example, some of those props don't pop as much as they did on screen. And you're really just trying to take what you saw, what everybody kind of consciously remembers, a collective memory, and put it into your work. I think you've really accomplished that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like, I first started off doing paintings. So when you paint something, you try and pick out, I don't know, some people disagree with me on this. Stylized, I prefer stylized over something that's photoreal, just
Mhm.
because there's a point where it gets so photoreal, not to knock these photoreal artists out there, because it is unbelievable talent it takes to make something like insanely real looking. But for me personally, it gets to a point where it's just like that. I can't distinguish that between art and photo, and I'm only more impressed after you tell me that it's a painting. And that doesn't take away from it, but for me, I'm just like, oh, I prefer something where I can tell somebody's painted it, and
Yeah.
they're the only ones that can paint like that, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, because you could have 100. Some people are going to call me a snob for this, but you could have 100 insanely talented photoreal artists, and they will all look the exact same. And I wouldn't be able to tell you who did what. He did this painting, he did that painting, she did that, she did this.
Mhm.
Whereas with a stylized one, that a little bit more stylized, I can immediately be like, oh, that looks like your work. This looks like this person's work. That artist, you're influenced by this, you're influenced by that. And I think that's more interesting. So I try my best to do that with my stuff, because there's people out there that will do prop million times better than I do, that I'm constantly looking at on Instagram, and I see people's work and I'm like, oh, that is so good. That is so beautiful. Like, I hope to make stuff like that one day. Like, I all the time, 24/7. Like, there's loads of artists that have made the same things I have and done unbelievable work. But I do like that you can tell that it's done by different artists, if that makes sense.
This is one of my favorite pieces that I think
Oh
you've done.
yeah,
The Crown of Thranduil. Oh, it's
yeah.
so good.
I love that because I ran in the behind the scenes of The Hobbit. They mentioned about they didn't have a certain foliage correct or something, and they just went outside and just picked stuff off a bush and just stuck it on. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love that kind of filmmaking and prop making. Like,
Mhm.
lightsabers from Star Wars, literally just a flash from an old camera. Like, I
Yeah.
love stuff like that. So when I was commissioned to make a Thranduil crown, I was like, right, I definitely want to just. I'm not gonna copy exactly what we see in the films.
Mhm.
I'm gonna pick a season that the person who's commissioned from me likes. There's no point in me going, oh, yeah, autumn, and they're like, yeah, I hate it. So I'll ask them, I've got an idea for an autumn style crown. They're like, oh, perfect. Um, and I'll go to the shop. I'll go to, you know, any kind of place that does like wreaths for your door and things like that. And I'll just find little things, cut them off. Not in the shop, obviously. I'll buy them and then cut them off. Take cuttings inside of Asda, just like. But yeah, and I'll just gather loads of little bits, little leaves, and little fake stuff, but obviously it looks a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, and then just stuck it all on there. And I really had the idea of I need to keep with browns and autumn colors, and then have one pop of color in there, which is the red.
Yeah.
But I've done another crown since then, which is a little bit more summery. So there's a little bit more purple in there. I've not posted it anywhere, but a little
Mhm.
bit more purple in there and a little bit more yellow and things like that. And that prop in particular really leans to be like, you can kind of do what you want, and it still completely sells as this is the crown from Thranduil from The Hobbit.
Right.
Like, you have a lot of artistic leniency with that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, I loved making that because I could do that. I can kind of just do what I want. So that was really, really fun to make.
Amazing.
Well, speaking of crowns, we're moving on to my favorite crown, of course. and this is your very first version of it, and it's
Yeah.
the version that actually made me order your very first piece. And I'm sure people have seen it to the back and left of me, but it's not this one. This is the original one that you did as a test.
Yeah.
And for those that are not sure which design this is, it's of course the magnificent and, to my mind, the best Witch King crown um, out there, by John Howe, of course. And so, as soon as I saw those first few images that you posted of that crown, I think you were looking for close-ups and dimensions and some additional detail from the Uman piece that John Howe collaborated on to deliver the quarter-scale Witch King. And I just remember taking a bunch and some videos of mine and just sending them to you, and then slowly but surely, I just thought, right, this is such a remarkable piece that we just need to. I'd love to have it, and I'd love to have this crown displayed in a way that does justice to the art, the original art by John.
Yeah.
And so it took a while, but we then got into I can't remember how much, but nearly more than half a year at least process of trying to design and to commission this stand for the crown. And you worked so, I suppose, tirelessly on getting this warmth and this feel from this particular image,
Mm.
that I thought it was I suppose, firstly, I was delighted that you agreed to do something that you don't usually do, which is a bespoke stand for something that, you tend to focus on the prop itself. But
Mm.
it seemed like a really interesting opportunity. Certainly from my point of view, it was a delight to work with you on it and to do something that feels really special and is is remarkable.
Yeah. I truly, honestly believe without your design of that stand, it'd be nothing. It would not be anywhere close to like what it is. Um, Not even close. Um, I love making those things. They are so difficult to make. Some people will be watching you like, nah, it's just, but there's so hard. Like it's because it incorporates. There's so many different mediums that go into it. Like, it's just not very straightforward. Um, but yeah, the original one that I decided to go for was just like a test to see if I could do it. And all that chainmail you saw in the original one was all 3D printed. I was very much on a 3D print kick at the time. I was like, yeah, I'll just 3D print chainmail, and it was just a nightmare. Now, most of them are, well, all of them is real chainmail because it looks better, it feels better, it just sells the item a lot more. It's a lot easier. But yeah, it's just, I think we wanted something, even though half of it is covered most of the time, we wanted something that really kind of shines on its own a little bit. I mean, the silhouette of that already trumps the original one like completely to the point where you can almost see that on a chessboard. Um, it it really, like, honestly, it adds so much to it, and I can't thank you enough for that because it really does, like, it just frames it so nicely. And it's really narrow and it's really tall and everything feels in proportion. Everything feels like where it kind of should be sitting. And getting that right is such a headache, trying to make things sit the way you want them to sit. And I mean, just for the spikes, for example, on the back of the neck and shoulders, I didn't want to stick them down because if you stick them down and one is slightly out, it'll bug you till your hair turns grey. It would send you up the wall. So I had an idea of, I think we spoke about it, didn't we? We think, oh, we can make something that goes behind the chainmail and interlocks with the chainmail, then interlocks with the spike and all these different things. And I was like, you know what? I might just stick magnets on it. So super glued loads of magnets to it. And that was a game changer because obviously you can take all the spikes off for shipping and whatever you need to do. And if one's slightly out or you've got too many on there and you want to take a couple off just to distribute the weight a little bit nicer, you just pop them off. Click them off, click them on, click them off, click them off, and just put them wherever you want. There's some people that have taken the big spikes and had them up top. I don't know why, that's just what they want to do. But I think that's a really, really cool thing that they can just do what they like. But yeah, that thing took a very long time. Like it's a beast. It really is a beast. I mean, because the spikes are all sort of, they kind of curve inwards ever so slightly, what makes it hard to get your hand down and paint it in properly. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. Like I really do feel that's one of the pieces that I make that makes me look professional.
Well,
I think
go ahead.
no, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, speaking of making it professional, I mean, this was the new latest museum collection Sauron helm from United Cutlery that I just bought because I thought that it would pair really nicely. And I have to say, and I'm not a United Cutlery aficionado, but having the two side by side, you couldn't tell that one is, made by a large company or, for the type of company that is a largish enough company which does these things professionally and has access to the original props. And your helm, like to my mind and to my eyes, they feel of the same standing, and they can. I think that Witch King helm can hold its own, and it can command a room, and it has its own presence that is so distinct and so kind of powerful that I really think it's a remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
No, thank you. It does have that kind of, even though there's not a chest on it, it does have that kind of chest out, shoulders back kind of look to it that feels a bit intimidating at times. Especially, I've got one downstairs, and when it's on the stand, like that image there, when it's on the stand with the chainmail, with the spikes, and it's just there, and with the void and everything. Obviously, I used Musu Black, which is similar to Black 3.0, whatever you want to call it, where it's like a very heavy pigmented black. So in person, when there's no like direct light on it, it genuinely looks like a void. And sometimes when that's on my workstation downstairs, it is a little intimidating. You can stare at it for a while and you just kind of look at it and you think, yeah, this thing's big. Even though I personally don't, I feel like if I was to do a life-size one, it would be slightly bigger, but I don't know, I might be wrong. But it kind of feels like it starts to loom over you a little bit and like leans forward. And I think that's really, really cool.
I'm staring at it right now and it looks like it's kind of just coming through the screen here. It's kind of wild.
I did really want to put some red LEDs in there for eyes, but I think it can, even though I love that depiction in the books, the floating crown with the glowing eyes is like so special to me. I love that look. I think in person as a prop, it can Halloween decoration it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't do that, but that's not to say I will not do that in the future.
Sure. Yeah.
It certainly would be an interesting experiment. I remember how long and how many blacks we actually experimented with on this one until we get that void feel, because I remember chatting with you about this, that feel of which some Witch King helms do. They just have a piece of cloth right where the void should be. And to
Yeah.
me, that's so disappointing. It just gives the game away. It's just not. It's not what's described in the book. It's not what it's meant to feel like. And getting that curve and that depth and that scoop that then allows you to
Yeah.
have the sense of a floating crown that you really see, particularly in the side profiles, and then the Japanese Musu Black, which I think from memory it's 99.4 percent kills reflection. So it basically light hits it and it does not reflect 99.4% of the time. And was it Black 2.0 that we tried, which was 98 point something, and it just wasn't as black as we needed it to be until we
Yeah. So
got this
essentially,
Japanese one.
essentially, it's like I don't know. I don't know what it is, but the mixture in the I think it was a 3.0. I don't know, but in the three, let's just call it the 3.0.
Yeah.
In that, the paint was so thick and it dries unbelievably fast. So as you paint down as a single stroke, the start of your stroke will already start to sort of bite. And if you do it a little bit too thick, what happens is it doesn't dry perfectly matte. So it doesn't. Sometimes when you apply it too thick, it has a slight satin sheen to it, and you can see all the ripples like where you've been with your paintbrush. And it was so frustrating because I wanted it to be black, and seeing these lines in it because the inside of that stand is resin. It's covered in resin. So I tried to get it as smooth as I could because obviously the smoother it is, the less like topography for the light sort of catch on. And I was just trying to help the black paint do its thing that it needs to do.
Yeah.
And I was doing it at this 3.0, and it was just, even though it was supposedly darker, it just wouldn't go the way I wanted. It wouldn't paint on very well. In other applications, I'm sure it would do. I'm sure it would be amazing. But in this application, it just wasn't doing what I needed to do. And I was messaging you saying like, oh, really like struggling with this, don't know what to do. And then we tried the Musu Black, and that was way thinner. It came in a much smaller pot, but it was way thinner. And that just glided on. It took a little bit longer to dry, and it was perfect. But the two things I noticed about these paints is when they dry out, it literally turns to like coal almost. So I've got a pot of it downstairs that is like half full, but it's dried out.
Right.
And if you pour like the tiniest bit of water in it and shake it up again, it goes beautiful, like this velvety kind of paint again. But I did that with the other paint, it didn't like it, and it added this reflective thing to it. So it took a while to find the right. This story has gone on for like 3 minutes of me just trying to find the right black. Like it's just crazy. Like obviously as an artist, and if you're even a little bit creatively minded, even a little bit, even if you've only decorated your own room at your house or whatever, you know what you want in your brain. And when we were making this, I wanted a void. I didn't want it to be like a little bit of a void. So literally the top end, what we could do, we did. You can't really get any more of a void than the paint we used. It doesn't exist unless there's this fabric that you can get that is insane, but it's like so expensive. So it's
or we break into Anish Kapoor's stores and buy his patented darkest black. But
just break into a safe and get this little pot and be like, it's mine.
yeah,
I'm going to use it.
yeah. It is a remarkable thing, and it has that kind of velvety, silky feel to the finish as well. It's really, really gorgeous. Well, speaking of Nazgul crowns, you recently completed a set of the Twilight Nazgul crowns from Weathertop, again quarter scale, which is another little beautiful collection.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love these things. The Fellowship is my favorite movie. I know a lot of people are just like, no, it's Return of the King, but The Fellowship is my favorite movie and it's my favorite book of the trilogy, 100%. And that scene in particular, I love because it's the moment where you know, the unseen world, you see it for a split second. And I remember as a kid when I was 12 or 11, seeing that in the cinema, I was like, oh, because I've always loved spooky stuff. So seeing that moment, I was like, whoa, is that what they look like? Because obviously throughout the rest of the film, you never see him look like that again. So I was like, that is so cool. And then watching the behind the scenes in your guys' episode last time, where you briefly spoke about the Twilight Crowns,
Yeah.
those images in front of the blue screen that they were filming, I've always had those images saved on my phone and been like, they're such beautiful designs that I've seen for what, 15 seconds maybe?
Yeah. Something like
Maybe something like that. So for a long time, this has been in the back of my mind to do. Not a million. A few people have made the Twilight Witch King crown perfectly, like wonderfully. Obviously, Weta did their own mini version that's metal. That's wonderful. Hard to get hold of, but wonderful. Is it Mike Shea? He made one, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's
making
making one from aluminium, isn't it?
Yeah,
something like that. I think he's doing another one, but yeah.
yeah. His is 100% so like inspirational. When he was posting pictures of that, I was like, and the first Twilight crown I made was made out of cardboard, and I think it looks really good still. But yeah, always been obsessed with that crown in particular.
Yeah.
And then when I had the idea to do the rest of them, I was like, oh, I can't do that. Like we barely see the crowns as it is. Like I'm not going to be able to do that. But we figured out a way. I worked with a friend doing like 3D models on them and stuff like that, and he was helping me do a few like things and pointers and stuff, and we managed to get them out. But then I wanted it to be a set. I wanted it to kind of. Oh, I've got to choose my words carefully here. Without ripping off or like copying. I really wanted them to sit within Weta's quarter scale because they're so perfect and so loved by so many people. I just wanted to make something that they haven't done that would, if people want to buy it from me, it will fit in the collection with the Weta stuff. That doesn't look like Weta stuff. I mean, I've got my own weird little stand topper with my logo and stuff. I just really wanted to be a part of like the quarter scale stuff because it's so cool. And I never used to like quarter scale stuff. I hated it. I was like, what's the point in quarter scale stuff? I want full size. And I am in the process of currently making full size set of these. I've got 3 crowns down. I've got the rest to do. So yeah, full size ones are coming, but those miniatures are the first minis that I've made where I was looking at them and thought, I truly see the allure of quarter scale stuff.
Yeah.
100%. And I am very proud how I translated the texture of the big ones to the little ones. I really love these things. They're so cool. And they're really unique. Apart from that far left one being kind of with it because it's being tall and it's kind of similar to the Witch King one. I think there's such a cool design of something you don't see a lot of. The only images I had to work off were the blue screen background ones that the behind the scenes showed. That's it. That's the only things we had. So I think they came out well. I think one of them should have a couple more spikes on, but other than that, I think they came out really, really well.
No, these are amazing. Oh gosh, I just want to ask you to make more for me. That's amazing. They look so good.
Thank you.
You're right that you don't see them very often. It's only that 15 to 20 second, not even 20, maybe 10 to 15 seconds of screen time, and it could be anything, honestly, unless you really analyze it or look at those behind the scenes images. I think you did amazing work here.
Thank you. It's again, I really enjoy making things that are not the norm. So, loads of people have made the Witch King crown and will do an immense job, perfect job, to the point where I'm just like, I should pack up and never do it again. But I really enjoy making the obscure. Excuse me, I'm burping a lot. I love making the obscure stuff, like whether it be an Urukai crossbow or a Moria orc shield type thing, like the Goblin King crown from The Hobbit. That was full size as well. That was like huge. It was massive. I love making weird, slightly obscure stuff from Tolkien's world, and especially from the movies, because that's what really kicked it off for me. So, yeah, I'm proud of these, how they've come out anyway.
Well as pieces from the movies, and making prompts. You talked a little bit earlier about paintings, and I thought we'll maybe just end on a few of those, some older and some very, very recent. But this is an old one, isn't it? Of the Witch King with the glowing eyes, with the floating crown, and it's kind of using the Weathertop crown, but in the inverse, in the real world, so to speak, in the Return of the King scene rather than the Weathertop scene. And it's such a evocative, kind of powerful depiction with the flames in the or the sense of flames once again. It's not a detailed background, but it just gives that sense of mayhem and destruction and war, which feels so appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird like shape as well, and I have a habit. I make art for the frames rather than frames for the art. So I will go to charity shops or thrift stores or anywhere like that, and I'll see a really beautiful frame, and I'm like, I'm going to paint on that. So I'll bust out whatever glass is in it and use the backing board and paint on that. And that last The Witch King one was in like an oval pill-shaped frame. And I was like, I don't know what I want to paint on it. And if you look really closely in that picture, I don't think you'd be able to see it, but there is an outline of a Jurassic Park T-Rex turning over a Ford Explorer. And I painted that, and I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And then I did the typical artist thing where I was like, I hate it. And yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but somewhere in that image is a T-Rex. And I was like, yeah, this is not working. I'm going to get rid of this. So painted brown all over it. And I was like, don't know what I'm going to do. And then I saw some artwork. I think there's a guy on Instagram called Benno, and he did some artwork ages ago of like the Witch King. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to paint the Witch King. So we did a painting of the Witch King. This was like one of the first ones where I don't want to just paint the movie Witch King. I need to do something, because there's loads out there. I need to provide something a little bit different. So I was like, maybe I should paint my own version, even though it isn't really. It's very heavily reliant on the movie version, but just a conglomerate of different pieces. I did that. I mean, looking at that now, I'm already picking fault with it, but I was very proud of that at the time, and I really, really enjoyed painting that. And that was the first time I kind of painted something like that, if that makes sense. I painted loads of different. I think I painted some Hobbit holes before then, but this was probably like the 5th painting of like my journey on being a full-time artist, quote unquote. Awesome. And I was pretty happy with it, and it sold very, very quickly, which I'm very fortunate about. But this was at the time where I still didn't believe people wanted to buy from me. So there's no prints of this. There's no scans of it. this image and the original is all that exists of it, and I can't even remember who bought it. So yeah, I definitely need to get better at immortalizing these things I make a little bit better.
Well, the Jurassic Park story or background is now firmly stuck in my head with this piece, but it also is kind of appropriate considering Tolkien himself realized that his description of the fell beast was basically a pterodactyl. So
Yeah.
if
Well,
only it was a pterodactyl rather than a T-Rex, maybe it would have been even better to keep it in the
now I
background.
want the Witch King on a T-Rex.
Yeah.
Done. That's my next painting. It's going to be the
Right.
Witch King on the T-Rex.
I'll buy it.
You can kind of tell that because there's so much black from like the middle down like his chest and stuff. That is where the T-Rex head kind of was, because it's actually upside down. So I span it round and repainted it. So yeah, it's just yeah, if you looked at it at certain lights, you could see the slight pencil marks of the old sketch and stuff. I think that's cool. I like things like that.
Yeah.
Well, 5 years later, then you've
Yeah.
revisited this subject in this very recent piece. This has only come out in the last month or so, and
Yeah,
this actually is your own version of the Witch King.
it
And
is.
there's
It is.
quite a few little Easter eggs you might want to talk about.
Yeah. So this was only like 3 weeks ago at the time we're recording this. So I just needed a break from making things. This is the first painting I've done in quite a long time. And I just got really burnt out. And when I get creative burnout, it can be a week or two before it comes back to me. Excuse me. And I was terrified of that happening, because obviously people have spent their money on me and they're expecting things. And as amazing as everybody's been, I don't want to. If somebody messages me and say, "Oh, have you got any updates?" I don't want to say, "Yeah, I've just sat my arse for a week doing nothing." Sorry, because I'm like creatively burnt out. So I was like, I need to do something that I'm going to enjoy. I'm not planning to sell. I'm not planning to do anything with other than just to paint. And I've had this frame for a long time. It had a print of something in. I can't even remember what, like a street or something. And I saw the frame in my workroom. I was like, yeah, just get rid of the glass in that and just paint on it. And it was weird because I didn't even sketch. This was just paint on, not canvas, but you know what I mean? Paint on canvas like instantly, which is not something I do. I normally sketch out the silhouette all in all so I can work from that, because I used to really struggle with proportion and where things are meant to be. And I thought, you know what, it's a floating crown. Like, how off can you be? Like, it doesn't really matter. So I drew a line from the top of the crown to the bottom of the crown, and then further down, because I wanted the sword to be in line with the center of the crown. That's all I wanted. I was like, we can do the rest. It doesn't matter what it is. Let's just go for it. So the original idea was for him to be in kind of like a monastery background. Don't know why. And then I realized I don't usually paint like that. So I just want a quick paint. I did this in an evening. This wasn't like a couple-day process. This was like an evening job. So I just put some music on, which I always do. Just sat down, put some music on, and just went for it. And very slowly, I started to realize, oh, this is actually going really well. Because when I'm designing my own stuff, it can be a bit daunting, because there's artists I look up to and stuff, and they've designed some wonderful things. It's hard to. I didn't want to copy from them in any way, but I also didn't want to not be inspired by them. So I was really worried. I was like, this is probably going to turn out awful, but we'll give it a go. So starting with I painted the background with literally my hands, just put paint here, and just swirled it. I'm like, right, that's my background. Cool, done. And then I just painted the crown. I didn't like block anything out. I just painted the crown from start to finish first, just so I knew where the head would be, where the shoulders would be, and everything. And as I was painting the crown, it was just designing on the fly. So I was like, oh, what is a cool crown? And I actually kept thinking of the Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. The
Oh, yeah.
is it the Ice Queen or the Ice Witch or whatever? Yeah, I can't remember. Um, I had that vision in my head. You know, I don't know if you know the BBC uh,
Oh
films they
yeah.
did lined up.
Mhm.
Yeah, that kept popping in my head, and I'm sure that looks nothing like the crown she wears, but that for some reason just kept coming into my head. So I was like, all right, I'm going to use that kind of look. So if you look at the crown, um, there's two eyes of Sauron in there, kind of like situated like on either side of the center point. Yeah, just there. So I was like, cool, I've got one eye of Sauron in there, or two technically. I was like, that's enough for me because it's just a little bit, kind of just like an eye with a slit.
Yeah.
Fine, great. And then as I went down to the shoulders, I was like, okay, what do I want the shoulders to be inspired by? I love the Headless Horseman, and I love anything like that. So I was like, I definitely want like an old school armor breastplate, not like uh, overlapping armor. I want it to be a classic kind of full chest plate that almost looks hard to move in.
Right.
And then just a little collar and then nothing else. I wanted to keep it simple. So I did that, and then I was like, okay, now it's looking a little bit too simple. Maybe the shoulder armor should be a little bit more intimidating and extravagant. So I actually copied, the top of Barad-dûr as it has two spikes at the side and it flails out to the sort of over where the eye sits.
Mhm.
I used that as inspiration. It doesn't really look like that, but that's what I went for the shoulders. So that's another little Easter egg. But then the other Eye of Sauron, which I'm proud I put in there because I was kind of doing it as like a bit of a joke, and then I just left it. I was like, I like it. It's actually the hilt of the sword. So if you look at the hilt of the sword, you've got the oval, like the top of the hilt is the top of the eye, and then in the center of the sword, there's kind of like a fuller that looks like the slit. And I tried to make it look like there's an old Eye of Sauron kind of logo that is like red and it kicks out. And it's usually on banners and things like that. I wanted to copy that kind of look and put that into the sword. I thought that was fun, just a fun little thing. Because when I'm designing these things, like obviously I don't have months and months of like R&D to do. So I was like, oh, what sword do I go for? So I was like, I'll just do a broadsword, but try and work in some kind of motif because I didn't want him to be too crazy. Like obviously I could have made that sword spiky and really evil, and like I thought the shoulders and crown was enough.
Yeah.
So I kind of toned everything else down because obviously his cloak is obviously really ragged and kind of floating all over the place. So I was like, that's another element that's kind of a bit much. So I kind of just want to tone down other places and accentuate other bits. So I also really wanted to incorporate the Twilight version of the Witch King because in my eye, this is the version that rocks up in front of Eowyn and it's just like, yo, don't mess around. But I wanted to keep that Twilight-y version of him. So that's why the robes are really tattered, probably more so than they would be, and like kind of ethereally kind of floating around. Like there's no wind, but they're like naturally kind of almost as if they're underwater. I kind of wanted that look to it. And yeah, it was just a stream of consciousness thing. I know it sounds a bit pretentious, but it was a case of just like, I'm just going to paint what I would want to see. And that's what I did. So yeah, I love that thing. It's massive, and I haven't got any scans of it yet because it's so big it won't fit on a scanner.
It's an amazing depiction, and I particularly love the floating effect of the robes as well, and the overall feel of that kind of geometry of the axial line that runs down all the way from the crown to the breastplate to the sword. It is great. And are prints available of this, or are you?
There will be. I'm
Mhm.
just shopping around. Unfortunately, what I'm going to have to do, I think I'm going to have to take a very high resolution photo of it
Mhm.
then crop it down and then do prints of that because because it's painted on wood, I physically cannot find a place that has a big enough scanner
Yeah.
to scan it through. I just can't. Um, and I don't want to sacrifice. I don't want to cut anything off. Like the space between the top of the crown and the top of the painting is borderline deliberate, and I don't want to cut that off. So I'm gonna have to do some shopping and see if anybody can scan it. If not, I will figure out a way to do prints because this is sold. Someone bought this, and I didn't even put it up for sale yet. It just went,
Wow.
and I love it. It's one of my favorite paintings that I've ever done, and I really love it. So I was like, I'm gonna have to get a print of it because if I don't, it's gonna be one of those things that I regret selling.
I'm just looking at it and I'm getting lost in it, and it's amazing. It looks like it's in that same family we've seen of like Sauron himself, the mouth of Sauron, even. Like there's some bits there that I can recognize. I love how you mentioned like the shoulders are that scoop of Barad-dûr between the two horns, that kind of design work. I can
Mm.
see that there. This really looks very good. And when you do make prints, I think I might. This is one of my favorite paintings of the Witch King I've seen. It just looks like one of those old sort of Renaissance era paintings. It's just like an orc took a canvas and was like, "All right, sir, hold still." Um, I love this. You did, of course, incredible work. Um, so yeah, whenever you do get prints, count me in. I'm definitely interested.
Oh, thanks, Adam. That does really mean a lot because when I obviously design when it's my own interpretation, it's a bit daunting. I wasn't expecting anybody to like it.
Mhm.
Like it's my own like thing. You've got the most perfect designs out there. So like sometimes I'm like, what can I add to it? But that is the beauty of Tolkien. I think every interpretation of Tolkien is so cool within its own way, and that's obviously what you get from a book. Like that's the beauty of a book is that everybody's version is slightly different in their head. No matter how many films come out, no matter how many visual depictions we can see, like everybody's got their own version. And this is just something that I thought of. This is not a Witch King that's lived in my brain for a long time. This is just a version of the Witch King where, in the moment when I'm sat in my workroom in the dark because the light is broken, so I'm sat with a little light on me. I'm just like, what do I want to see right now? And because I'm sat in a dark room, I was like, I want to see something pretty evil and gloomy. And a lot of my paintings are pretty much always brown and like dark, and they're hard to take photos of. And I always get told off by my partner because she's like, it's a little bit too dark. You need to brighten up your images a bit more. But I love that kind of thing. So it does mean a lot. Like when you said Adam, like it it's one of those moments where I was like, yeah, I'm okay with what I'm doing. This is cool. This is fun. Because it's one thing replicating something that thing already exists, arguably,
Yeah.
whereas this doesn't. So it was really nice to do.
And it now does, and it joins the visual imaginary canon of depictions of the Witch King. And I think you're very right to say that this is the beauty of those books. And despite Tolkien getting hard time from some people that he describes too much, he actually barely describes at all.
Mm,
And it's more of a feeling or a kind of a presence, but we don't really know exactly what any of those characters really look like. And unlike other authors, which go to great lengths of describing every single detail of them. And
Mhm.
I think that's the more fun of it, that actually every version is just as right as another one. Some
Yeah.
feel more right to some people's eyes, other less so. But I love this one, and yeah, whenever you do get prints of this one, I will be ordering one as well. Um, but speaking of the shoulder pads on the Barad-dûr, the next painting on our final project that we'll be looking at is Barad-dûr itself, of course, which you just completed as of this time of this recording. So, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about this one as well? Another very kind of powerful, characterful presence and beautiful composition within that kind of gorgeous frame.
Yeah, this is another moment where I was like, I just feel like I need to paint. Like I just have that thing. And obviously with the Witch King, I'm not exaggerating. The Witch King was like, what was it, 70 centimeters by like 50 centimeters, massive. And I was like, right, if I'm gonna want to make prints of this next painting, I need to chill out. So me and Sarah, we went to a thrift store or antique shop, if you like. And we go in there all the time to get frames because we want to cover this entire wall. Like this room goes on down there. We want to have loads of paintings and loads of prints and stuff on the walls. And we go there all the time and you find really nice frames, like £2. And this was actually a mirror. And it was a horrible red wood with a gold thing, but it was £2. And I was like, I'm having that and I want to paint tonight. So took the glass out and just had the board. I was like, but what do I want to paint? And usually I let the frame tell me what it wants inside of it. So because it was elongated, I thought, you know what? Everybody, I don't know why, keeps saying, oh, are you ever going to do a print of Orthanc? Because I did a painting of Orthanc a few years ago. And I was like, oh, yeah, when I get round to painting it again, I was like, right, I'm going to paint Orthanc. And I was like, you know what? I've not actually painted Barad-dûr. Maybe I should. So again, I always start with the background, and that literally was an accident. I put black in the corner, then brown, then a big streak of white, and then brown. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why have I just done that? There was loads of paint on there, like way too much. I think I sent you, Julian, the picture of it where there was just like blobs of paint everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. So I started rubbing it with my hand and just trying to spread it out and like scooping a bit off, putting it in the bin, scooping it off. And it started to swirl together where I was like, wow, these clouds look really good. So I did that, swirled everything around. And then with this one, I did sketch in the tower just so I knew where I was going and what to keep in and what to sort of slightly come out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I knew I wanted bats flying around it because I just love the idea of Sauron. Sauron and bats go together so well, as you know. Like my favorite story in Silmarillion is Beren and Luthien, and I love the scene where Sauron is pinned down. It's by Huan, and he's freaking out. He's having an absolute meltdown, shape-shifting into loads of different things. He's like, oh my God, like, please let go of me. I promise I'll do good. And then when he gets let go, he's just like, and just bursts into like, I think they say bats, don't they? Or a vampire bat or a bunch of
vampire
bats.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just flies off. I've always been like, wow. Because I love Dracula and spooky things. Like, I've always seen Sauron as that kind of like shapeshiftery kind of ghoul. Yeah. So when I was painting the Barad-dûr, I was like, right, I definitely don't want to do the eye. As much as I like the eye, there's a little bit of cheapness that comes with that. So I was like, in my version, I'm not going to do the eye. In my brain, this is kind of like the day before opening of Barad-dûr. This is like the grand reveal.
Before the Christmas lights go on. Yeah.
Exactly. This is when they're sorting out, they've got a ribbon over the front door and he's about to cut it. So I was like, I don't want the eye in there. So I was like, I'll do some bats. So I don't know if you can see, but on the full one and on the print, you can see there's like swarms of bats kind of flying around it and things. And there's a couple of bigger ones that are closer, but yeah. And I started from top down, which I don't normally do. I normally start with like the darkest point and then get up to the light point. But yeah, I'm really proud of it, considering how I personally don't think there's too much detail in it. But with the way I paint, it kind of implies more detail than there actually is. I think it helps that the clouds are so sort of dynamic and there's loads of different colors and swirls and things. I think that really, really helps it. But there was a
I was
few
about to
images of
say there's a
Barad-dûr.
lot of impression of detail, but any continue.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It is. I think when things are really far away, obviously you're not going to see loads of detail. So I really wanted it to be more shapely rather than, tiny little lines and things. So what I used to do when I painted, I used to paint and then go over it with uh, pens to do like little lines just to bring out the really sharp stuff. But I don't tend to do that anymore just because it adds too much kind of like grit to it.
Yeah.
So with this, there was a few images of Barad-dûr that I pulled from for reference, and there's one image of Barad-dûr that is from the Shadow of Mordor games, where it has this like glowing city underneath it. And I was like, oh, I need to put that in because that is so cool. So that's one of them. But again, the city's just, or the bottom part of Barad-dûr is just made up. I was like, I want a wall here, a couple towers here, and when I was painting that, I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I was just going with the motion, if that makes sense. I wasn't thinking like this is a tower. I was just painting, just enjoying the process of painting, which is so enjoyable to do. Like I really enjoy painting without an end goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So at that point, when I got to the lower half, I was just enjoying myself. I was just like, yeah, just do that here, just do that here. And then by the end of it, I sort of pulled back and was like, oh, well, this is actually really cool. This is probably one of my favorite paintings I've ever done. And it's only small. It's only like a A4 size, like this big, but I love it. I'm really proud of that one. And again, it's not that easy for me, even though I've said it a few times in this conversation. Like, I do struggle sometimes to be like, I'm proud of that, but I'm definitely proud of that. I think it came out really, really well.
Yeah, you definitely should be. It's incredible, and it's funny because when you put it up a few days ago, I was in the middle of messaging you saying, "How do I get this?" I had to stop because I had to go back to work, so I never got back to it, and now it's gone, but very well deservedly so. It's such a good representation of Barad-dûr. I love it looks, I don't know if this was somewhat intentional, but like that lighter strip of cloud that kind of sits diagonally, it's like it kind of looks like light is trying to like come through the clouds of Mordor and kind of shine upon this, but it's not quite making it. It's corrupted, and
Yeah,
there's a lot
that's
of fantastic stuff.
thank you. I always knew that I didn't want to put the eye because again,
Yeah.
it would be quite difficult. I think painting the eye to make it look good in because it's quite desaturated and there's lots of browns to make that eye really work within that kind of world I painted. I think it would look a bit weird and stand out a little bit too much because if I make it darker, it would end up looking like a statue of an eye rather than a flaming like eye.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really want something at the top of the tower to accentuate it. So when I did the streak of white, my idea was originally was going to be a lightning strike behind it, which is a little bit Hammer horror, but I really wanted to do that lightning strike, and that's why I put the white in there to kind of like I don't know because there was loads of things I wanted to do in the image. I know I wanted Barad-dûr, but then I was like, do I paint Old Druin in the background? Do I paint Mount Doom in the background? Like, and then obviously you get volcanic lightning, which is like one of the coolest things in the world. I was like, do I do that, or is that like too much? So in the end, I decided, no, let's just go mid-morning in Mordor. It's just the storm's gone, and like the sun's trying to break through, but obviously there's that thick cloud over everything, and the sun's really desperately trying to break through, but it's just like, no, this is like a horrible clouded shadow realm. Like, you're not going to get too much in here.
No.
And I love again, back to that point about the detail being sparse and only where it's really needed, just to give you a sense of scale and of materiality, but the rest being this kind of blended sfumato matte silhouette, I suppose. And I think it works really well. And I think to your earlier point about the hyperrealism, I think this is where I much prefer this kind of painting where you could feel the hand, where you could see brush
Yeah.
strokes, where you
Yeah.
could see some areas are really detailed, but others are so general, and only a dab of brown or orange gives you a sense of a window, and it's all much more open, and it leaves a lot more for your own imagination to, imagine all the construction workers before opening day, checking the plumbing and all the rest. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but it kind of reminded me of the that what's that documentary, the famous Star Wars documentary that was done on the original trilogy, where they talked about how they implied the scale of the large the Death Star,
So,
where they just added little windows. I can't remember whether it was the destroyers or the Death Star, but the small windows just give you that sense of, level upon level, battlement upon battlement, tower upon tower, exactly as described. It is it
100%.
is it is a remarkable kind of piece. You did a run of prints of this one,
I did. I did 20.
and they're all gone.
Yeah. Again, I went to the print shop down the road, and the lady there was like, "Oh, if you order 10, you get 20." I was like, I was like, okay. I was like, I don't think I need 20. 20 is a bit much. Like, no, thank you. And she was like, oh, I think you should have 20. Obviously upselling me, but in a nice way. She's like, I really think you should have 20. I was like, okay, yeah, I can afford like 20. Let's just go for 20 there. 20, I signed each one, numbered each one, and I was like, if anybody wants them, gone in like an hour. Because I actually got some messages the night before and my phone was going a bit crazy. I was like, I just want to sleep. I woke up the next morning, gone, all of them gone. And eventually, when I got through all the messages, it was completely sold out. I will be doing a few more, probably
okay.
another 10, but they will not be signed. They won't be numbered because that was like a special, like they're the first set. The only reason I want to do more is not to take away from the original, the prints. It's just that so many people love this painting. And as much as I want to be the guy to be like, no, only 20, um, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't think it's fair. If people want to, obviously, yeah, it's nice. I get some money from it, but people seem to love this painting so much. I hate turning around and telling no to people. I hate it. I feel so guilty. Um, so I was like, okay, I'll do 10 more, but they're the lesser. They won't be signed. They won't be like numbered, and that's it. I won't be doing any more. That is like the original. The prints are beautiful. The prints came out really well, but the original is untouchable. The original is the original. It looks great.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, did some prints of that, which is cool. It's cool to see multiples of your own work back in a print form. Like you won't know this or even notice it in any of my work, but I'm a really big Gustave Doré fan.
Mhm.
He's a massive influence on my work, like artist wise, and his work is nothing like we're nothing like each other. But I bought loads of prints of his years ago, and seeing them all in a pile, I did think like, what would he have thought to see just his work just replicated and just loved so much? And then I got a little bit of that feeling seeing like a pile of my prints and being like, these are all accounted for. Like, I haven't got spare. I have to go and print more. Like, this is just, it's undeserved. And I know people are, oh, very humble, but like, it does feel that way sometimes. Like, it is, I'm so lucky that I can do this as a job and pay my bills and stuff. Don't get me wrong, scary months, like, where you're your own marketing person, you don't have a HR department that you can fall back on. You don't, if I don't work, if I don't produce things, if I don't do things, I'm done. Like I have to keep this going. I am so lucky I get to do this. And these prints, even though this was only a few days ago, these prints definitely like a moment where you just sit and you're just like, we did it. And not to get too emotional, but like to look back on like a few years ago when I was really down and really struggling, or even further back when I was like 16 and having no idea what you want to do. And there's people saying, oh, you need to get a real job, you need to do this, you need to do that. And you should definitely have a good fallback. I'm not saying to just like go headfirst into a dream because it can be dangerous nowadays. You can't get away with that. But I'm very lucky and acutely aware that this has worked out. And even if this was to end tomorrow, if something was to happen where, you know, things dry up and I break my fingers and I can't make anything anymore, I will 100% look back on like this later 20s, early 30s era of my life and be like, yeah, you lived your dream a little bit, which is crazy to think about. And I'd never thought I'd be able to do that. Never in a million years. Like when people used to ask like, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? What do you want to be? I used to say like paleontologist or, you know, a famous musician or, you know, I don't know, anything. I never thought I'd become like an artist by trade as a profession. Like that was way off. Like that was like something I would never think it would be possible. But you know, I'm doing all right, and I really wish anybody else who does this kind of thing like can just live and do this kind of thing because it's amazing. Really, it's really amazing. That was a bit of a tangent. Sorry, it was just.
No, not at all. And I think I'm sure Adam would agree with me. It is entirely deserved, and it's entirely justified that, you know, it's been such a success and such a gamble from your point of view to have taken and have paid off so well with, I mean, even the stories today, and I'm sure there's plenty more, and God knows what's to come next. But I think it's a remarkable story. It's a great series of artworks and pieces and an achievement. And I'm delighted to note that the original of Barad-dûr will be joining this collection that you see behind me. But it's been an absolute delight having you. And
Yes.
yeah, I think it's a I hope you've enjoyed this kind of conversation.
Oh, I've loved it. It's been really nice speaking to both of you. It really, really has.
Mhm.
I build things up in my brain all the time of just like, oh, I've got to talk about myself. I mean, I've done it pretty easily, but it's nice. It feels like I'm talking with friends, and I think that's like something that I've definitely taken away from Tolkien as a whole. Is the only reason I'll be 100% straight. The only reason my artwork has blown up. The only reason I've got a career from it is because of Tolkien, 100%. Because my original postings were on a Lord of the Rings collection page, and that's what's elevated it to this level. So I have so much thanks to give to like Tolkien as a whole, and I've met some of the best people. Michael, who I've met, who you've met as well. I got to meet you. Hopefully, one day I get to meet Adam.
Yeah.
There's so many people that I've met through this that I love really dearly now, and that are like pillars in my life that I only met because of Tolkien and like following my dreams essentially. So without getting soppy, I really do think like the whole love aspect of Tolkien's work, which I think is like the main thing, is to love apologetically. That's what I get out of Tolkien's work, is just like love, love, love all the time. As peace and like hippie as that sound, I really do think it's like unapologetic, and I've really felt that in the outside world. Unbelievably, I could get emotional and start crying talking about it. Like from watching the films with my dad in the cinema after like turmoil in that part of my life, and then all the way up to like leaving my job and then that becoming like another part of my life with like my work, and then meeting people like you guys and talking on something like this, which is going to go on YouTube, and like even more people are going to see it, and like people I've never met in my life being like, oh yeah, I've seen your stuff. It is so cool. And I used to be extremely shy. I never used to talk to anybody. Like, it's very much in my own way. And like, this has really forced me out of my comfort zone, but in a really positive way. So this conversation, if you're asking me if I've enjoyed it, I love it. I think it's so important for me. I'm still discovering stuff about myself, and I'm 32 now. So I feel like even though it's been going on a while, this is like just the start. And I don't know where it's going to end up. Might have a studio, might not, might just still do things from my house my whole life. But like, I love meeting these people and like doing these things. It's just incredible. It really, really is. It's like one of the best things I think I've ever done and could ever do. So I'm insanely proud that you asked me to be on here. Like it's thank you. It's really nice.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm sure Adam would agree completely as well. And I guess we'll just maybe end on one final question. What's next? What are you looking forward to? What's on the drawing board? What's at the workstation?
Trying to think of loads of stuff. I can tell you what my next painting is because I decided on that last night. The next painting is going to be a fell beast.
Nice.
At the Battle of Osgiliath, probably.
Great.
Brilliant.
That is 100% going to be the next painting. As in when I don't know when I'm going to do that. Probably in the next few weeks. I've got lots to do, but there's loads of cool stuff coming. There's loads of things that I plan to do that nobody else has done. I've got loads of lambus bread for some reason. Lambus bread is like my entire life at the minute. I don't know why people love that piece of bread so much, but like, I'm not joking. Downstairs, there's like 15 of them, and I'm just like, and I've got to make more. So I'm just like, oh, bread. So bread is a big thing. Bread is a big part of me now. A full-size Sauron costume is hopefully going to be done next year because I want to wear that at a convention. Yeah. The Witch King's not gone to a convention yet, but Sauron needs to be at a convention. And then I think I showed this off earlier, but the Uruk-hai crossbow is another thing that's like almost finished.
That's great.
There's loads of stuff. I have so many ideas of things that I want to do. Loads of miniature stuff, which is nice, which I never thought I'd do. More work with bands, more work on like small films and things are coming up. But yeah, loads of cool stuff. Like there's a point where, you know, I was doing things before and I'm like, right, this is not going to get bigger than this. This is my like top bracket and the rest will trickle down, which is fine. Like the Witch King bus. That's like the most intense thing I've ever made. It's not. There's going to be some crazy stuff coming in the next few months. So yeah, loads of good stuff to look forward to. So if you want to see it, stay tuned and you can have a gander at the crazy stuff I'm end up making.
Brilliant. Well, we'll make sure that all of your details are available, and I couldn't recommend people who have enjoyed this conversation to check out both your Instagram and on Facebook, follow, like, and contact you to get some of these pieces. They are really, really remarkable. And I suppose if we end it here, I'm just wondering, Adam, if there's any way. Is there any way that people can help the channel if they've enjoyed this conversation? What could they maybe do?
I guess this is my thing now. Please, everybody, like and subscribe. Feel free to comment and reach out to us. We're available on social media, so we look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Harvey, for a great conversation, for your time. And yeah, I hope people enjoyed just as much as we did. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
could be literally sitting in his bed,
Might be in the hospital still, I'm not
watching his head being signed. And then stick a signature on it, please, Terry.
Have I got something?
Right, whatever you like, yeah, I'm sure Michael will be happy.
What's his name?
Michael, M-I-C-H. Yeah.